Hello and welcome, fellow awesomologists to Awesomology. I'm Sue.
And I'm Ben. And in this episode, we're going to explore where ideas come from.
We thought we would pick the largest topic we could possibly think of.
Right.
Just blow this thing up.
Why not?
Yeah. How about thought? Let's talk about thought. We're going to talk about our personal ideation processes. That was the worst thing I've said today yet. Some things that might help our friends who think they don't have ideas. And we will dip our toes into the science behind it all, but we will only dip our toes because we are not neuroscientists or any kind of expert in cognitive thinking. Is that true, Ben?
Well, not yet. Not yet.
It's early. It's
At
early.
the end of this episode, who knows?
It's only Wednesday. It'll be fine. So let's start here. I am always fascinated by the ideating process. You know, as much as I talk smack about the word ideating, I use it a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by how other people do it. So tell me, can you describe for me what happens when you get into that ideating process? How do you do it? Where does the magic come from, Ben?
Well, that's a great way to end the question, because I do think that there is a certain amount of magic behind it that I don't know if we'll ever understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either individually understanding our own ideation process, or speaking of neurosurgeons or neurologists, or the people that might have a grasp on how this happens in nature, or who we are as human beings, or what we are as human beings. I don't know if we'll ever fully understand it, right? Because I think it is just, there's a certain magic behind it. And to that point, it's really, really tough to describe my own process, or to know precisely when the environment is most right for it, or anything, because it happens at different times, different places. Sometimes it's inspired by totally different things. The logical person in me, or that part of my brain, wants to say that ideas come, inspired by something like research, or a true neat and tidy process where I do this first, then ideas come, then I explore those ideas, then I kill 5 of them, and I explore these 2 that are perfect, and we know that from time to time, sure, there's maybe a process or planning or things like that where it can happen nice and neat and tidy and linear like that. But also there are times on the toilet, times in the shower, times when you are driving, or whatever, and you just see the thing, or something strikes you, where all of a sudden ideas start flowing. And that's definitely and I think that both of those things that I described, whether it's that nice tidy process or the spontaneous inspiration, both of them have a certain amount of magic in them. Maybe the spontaneous one is the one that feels a little bit more magical, because you were just doing whatever you were doing, and then all of a sudden something struck you. But I think even in that process, where maybe you go into a certain amount of time thinking I'm in idea mode now, there is something that happens there that, while it might be a little easier to connect that process, or part of that process, to the idea that came up, there's still something in there that I think we might not totally ever really understand, especially when you consider what is all happening in our brains to inform the ideas that we're spewing out on the whiteboard or whatever, including our own personal life experiences, our previous professional experiences, maybe what's happening in the world right now. And how all of those little micro moments of information are inspiring or informing our ideas. I think it's fascinating. It's inspiring in itself. But I can say, I think that the question that you asked was describing what happens when I'm in that process. And I do think that for me, I'm one that, however it happens, neat and tidy process or spontaneous, I'm one that sees a lot of potential in a lot of things. And we've experienced this, Sue, where we go into a brainstorm, and for the audience, I'm doing air quotes brainstorm right now. And the first idea or the second idea, something really early in the process, is something that we latch onto because I think that both of us are this kind of person where we see the potential in almost everything or in a lot of
Mhm.
things. So all it takes is that first idea and we start building it in our brains, or we start thinking about like how we can pull that thing off. And then what we wind up finding is at the end of our air quotes again brainstorming session, we really only talked about one or two ideas because we just like immediately go right into how we can make that thing possible, how we can make that first idea happen. So so to wrap up my response here, um, what happens in my process or when I'm ideating or when I'm trying to be creative, um, is I'm usually taking the first or one of the early things that strikes me, and I'm immediately diving into being creative around it, or ideating around like a first idea. I think that a lot of times, whether it's me designing something or you know, doing any kind of innovative process, there might be versions of a thing that wind up happening, or different possibilities, but they're all centered around a really early idea.
Mhm.
I don't. I don't think that I'm very good at like objectively looking back and seeing or making sure that I deliver six ideas before I go down any of those roads.
Mhm.
Excuse me.
I think a thing that we maybe have in common, besides the fact that we were so keen to jump on that first idea, uh, is that when we know we are going into a brainstorming session, and I don't know why I am self-discovering this right now, live on the air, but uh, we we come into those having already simmered on something. So
Right.
I wonder if what is happening is our brain is shedding all of those ideas that are not make boiling to the top, and those first two or three ideas are the top. Like we've had a whole bunch of them,
Yeah.
and some of them, sometimes we'll bring an extremely not fully formed idea to each other and say, I have no idea what this looks like, but you know I don't know.
Hear me out.
Yeah, hear me out.
Yeah.
uh but normally, and this is, and it's funny because this is the thing you pointed out in a meeting this morning. Normally what we both do when someone says, well, can we do this thing, is you and I immediately, before we even respond, go into problem solving and trying to figure that thing out. Um, and sometimes people, apparently, a thing we've learned today is sometimes people take that silence as a no,
Right.
which it isn't always, but we just are, uh, yeah, it's a trait we have in like alike, that we very quickly go into like problem solving. How can I do this? Let me get that fully fleshed out, and then I will tell you what I can see.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah. The one
So
thing, I know for sure about the problem solving process, or the ideating process, is that the way, if you want to make it the most difficult, tell yourself, I need to have an idea right now.
yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. So blessing and a curse, right? Like the ability to like see the potential in every idea and
Mhm.
start to like, workshop and develop that in your brain, before even changing the idea or shifting to another idea. Like that's cool. Like, nice to have that positive outlook on things. But uh, the curse maybe is, or the potential negative in that is maybe narrow-mindedness, just going with the
Mhm.
first thing that comes to your mind, masking something that just simply won't work in potential. you know
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So how about you? I mean, what happens for you when you're in that process?
Yeah. So I'm a big question asker. I am all about, I need to understand to such an extreme extent. I need to see every facet of the thing before before I really start to simmer on it. So it's basically, I will ask 1,000 questions maybe that nobody sees the point behind, nobody gets, maybe to the point of annoyance. And what works what works best for me is to ask all of those questions to get, what is the problem we're solving, what are we trying to figure out and do, uh, and just get all of that background and sort of put it in my little mental pot
Hmm.
and then let it simmer. And like down to, and we've talked about this before, down to the point of, let me walk away, let me take everything. And I've certainly done this with people we've worked with and said, okay, I've got that, now I
Yeah.
need to go.
Yeah.
And it's that simmering process, I think, that starts to shed, some of the weaker ideas. They're maybe not bad ideas,
Right.
but they're weak ideas, or starts to make connections. And then I have to consciously concentrate. I don't know if there's another way to concentrate, but I have to set aside time. Or okay, to say I have to set aside time probably is misconstruing how some of these things happen, because either I set aside time because I know I have to take what I know and turn it into something, or I drive to work, mow the lawn, like you said, take a shower, water the plants, any of those things. I have to get my brain in a space of not dealing with anything else and go on autopilot, you know,
Yeah.
and just deal with that idea to get there. And, I think that it's that sort of thing that makes it appear magical to people outside of our team, that when we have maybe come into a conversation that we knew we were going to have, and our brains have been working, and now all it takes is the answer to a question and we can go, oh well, here's the idea. And
Right.
people think that's magic, but it's nice that you want people to still believe it's magic. It's not. I don't think it's magic. I think it's synapses
Right.
and, you know
Right.
and just that
Yeah.
rich eternal internal life that
Yeah.
we have. Yeah.
Yeah. Something that you said that's interesting is how like some ideas that you might move on from aren't necessarily bad ideas. And I think another thing that maybe can be another part of the process that can be maybe uh, seen as magical or whatever, but is really just something that I think is very natural for people, is once you find the flow with a thing. So like that first idea or whatever idea it is where you start going down the road, maybe those questions start to get answered, or a question prompts another version of the idea and you just keep going with it. Like sometimes you just have to keep going because you've started to enter maybe a flow
Mhm.
state or something where you're really grooving on a thing, right, and just going. And again, maybe a little bit of a blessing and a curse, because you start to feel that energy, your brain's probably receiving dopamine and all this stuff to say keep going on this thing,
Yeah.
this is the right one. And it could very well be. I mean, there's a reason that you're there, right? But it also might be something where all of a sudden you've put blinders on to the right thing, or maybe even
Mhm.
information that tells you this isn't the best idea right now. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, just interesting that dynamic, between what you pursue and maybe what you choose to put aside, or whether that's consciously or unconsciously, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that we have in our favor is the line of work we're in, where if we were engineers and our first idea was not the best idea, like that's pretty permanent what's happening
Yeah.
there. But
Right.
as marketers, we have some boundaries we have to stay in, but otherwise we get to ideate and try a thing and ideate and try a thing, and we get to constantly be in this process of even if people outside of what we're doing don't recognize, that this ad to this ad to this ad to this ad, they might be completely different products, but they are iterations
Right.
of the same idea. We're working something out, and we have this availability of work, I guess, is what it is, that we can constantly be trying things,
Yeah.
and we can surface an idea that is not perfect, try it, and learn from it to hone it in a way that, maybe it probably in other industries, for example, if you're working with money, maybe you don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you're an engineer, that might not work
Right,
out well
right.
for
Or
sure.
brain surgeon, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Right.
There, a lot of people should not do this. So if you are any of those things, consider you
Stop
should,
listening. Yeah.
yeah, you should not use our method of trying something that's not great.
So, Sue, we have plenty of people that tell us we're the ones with all of the ideas.
Yeah, no
Do you
pressure
think
there.
that's, yeah. Do you think that's true?
No,
I
no.
know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean,
Tell me more.
we put it on here. Yeah. No, it is, we have a very particular set of skills. No, we, we have a unique set of expertise that helps us have the ideas for the things we have to do. But that doesn't mean, that means we can tell you if a thing will work in the newspaper versus social media, or if we should make it a video instead of uh, online ad. We can tell you our best. It's really, I don't want to use the word guess, but it's a guess. We can tell you our best insight, let me put it that way,
Mhm.
on how that thing could work. But that doesn't mean that we're the only idea people at all.
Right.
And I think what where we're uniquely situated is our job to come up with ideas, and then it builds this perception that we're the only people that can. But I firmly believe anyone can, and they maybe, maybe a thing that we could do, we would benefit other people uh, by doing, would be helping them understand that if we're in a conversation, say with a client, um, or someone on our team, and they bring up an idea that is, this really great seed of something, and we have to take that really great seed and turn it into something, making sure that they understand you didn't have a bad idea. Our job is to make that, you gave us that seed, and now we have to put it in the ground, and we have to water that little
Yeah.
seed. We have to make it grow. So I have to take what you gave me, because it's my job, because I'm in marketing. It's not,
Right.
it is, if you are a loan officer, it's not your job to do what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
give me your seed, let me plant it, let me water it. It's your idea, right? I
Right.
just am taking that and letting it grow in the way that my job allows me to.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure. Yeah. I think that that's definitely one of the biggest contributors to that misconception that whether it's a marketing team or a creative person or a
Mm,
designer or whatever, like they're the only people with the ideas, right? Is that disconnect that can happen from idea or seed to like what you wind up seeing at the end,
mm,
because I, I don't even, I would love to know how many times it's ever happened in the history of ideas where somebody has an idea, somebody else actually does the thing with the idea, and what winds up coming out in reality is precisely what that initial idea was in that person's head. Like, has it ever happened where it's like
right.
precise, right? So, like, when people have an idea, they're doing the thing that we're doing, maybe not on the same level, where they're starting to like build a thing in their brain. They're starting
Mm,
to, envision like what this idea might look like. And then when we take it and do our thing with it, it winds up being something different. There can be I think, a real misconception of, oh, well, they didn't like my idea, or that's different than the idea that I gave. When really, like you just said, no, like what we did was we took your idea and, we mixed in our experience and our expertise and all that stuff. And now there's this thing that exists in the world. But without your idea, what we created probably doesn't happen.
right.
So that, just, I think, back to the point of like everybody has ideas. It's just them coming into reality might look a little different than an idea that we come up with or something.
Right. Well, and I wonder if people realize that not only does that not happen, that, that perfect recreation of the single idea into final product, not only does it not happen between two people, it doesn't happen for us. We
Yeah.
don't start we don't fully realize an idea exactly in the way we imagine it. It, everything has a building and growing process that uh, it's just natural to it.
Right.
And yeah,
So
so
what?
sorry. So don't feel bad, is what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah, for sure. So how do we help people that maybe have that misconception or feel like they never have the ideas or don't have good ideas? What tips can you give people who think they don't have good ideas?
I have a list of 4 tips. Do you
Oh
want to
my
know my
goodness.
list? I know.
We
I
should
am.
probably turn that into a blog.
I am. Yeah, we probably will. Anytime I start putting numbers with periods behind them, it's going to end up being a blog. You should know that by now. In no particular order though, because I just threw them down. So once see again, this is four tips. But if I made this into a blog, I would put them in different order and I would explain them more carefully. So my 4 tips are: make time for creative ideas. I think what happens is if you are not programmed the way we in marketing or in public relations or jobs of our type are programmed to say, I know I need to make space for this to make this grow, then I think you end up frustrating yourself.
Sure.
You convince yourself, well, I'm supposed to figure this thing out. But then you go and do your regular job,
Yeah.
or you live your life and do all of the things that keep you from ideating. So
Yeah.
to make space for creative ideas. Number 2 is to reduce distractions. Similar to making space for that creative idea, you have to live in that sort of space with the idea until you are done with it. You can't, if you're working from home, you can't be washing dishes, doing laundry, and concentrating on those things when you need to be ideating. What I mean by that is, if you are ideating and you are doing those things because they are easy and automatic to help you ideate, that you can do. So it's a fine line.
Mhm.
Number 3, see how these are in terrible order. Number 3 is to find out what puts you in the mindset to ideate. So if that is meditation, or if you have to check in with yourself. Sometimes I have to say, okay, do I need to go to the bathroom? Have I hydrated? Am I hungry? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Just whatever you need to do to be comfortable so that you're not distracted.
Yeah.
And sort of out of your comfort zone. And then number 4, ironically, the last one of the 4 is start at the beginning.
Mm.
Terrible order again.
I like it though.
it's ironic and it's fun. So that is all about understand what you're ideating about. I don't know how many times we have come into a conversation with someone who is saying, we think we want to do this ad. And when we have talked around that idea, we come to this completely different place, because you have to start with, what are you trying to do?
Right.
What is success in whatever this is? And this is not just in marketing. This is in anything. When you're looking for an idea to do something, you have to figure out, what are you trying to accomplish at the end of the day, at the root of it.
Yeah, what problem are you trying to solve? I mean, all
Yes.
great questions. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't know what you're trying to solve, you're likely going to frustrate yourself, because you'll try something. We've had plenty of experiences where someone sees, or where we see, I should just pick on everyone outside of our department as if we're perfect, but where we see something we want to do and we just haven't connected it with a reason. So we
Sure.
want to do it. It seems cool. It looks cool. But if we don't have a reason for doing it, then we're going to have a really hard time having a good idea for that thing.
Yeah.
So what about you? Do you have other tips? I only came up with 4. So
Gosh, but it was a great 4. Yeah. Just I don't know, this sounds cliche, but it actually ties in with something awesome that I want to share. Just that you need a lot of bad ideas for a good one to happen, so like not being afraid of the process, of the time, of the space. And, again, it sounds cliche, but being uncomfortable, right? Like, but it's a reason it's cliche, because it's real, like, if you're never going to put yourself in a space to be creative or to, be in a ideation mindset, it's not going to happen. There is the spontaneous opportunity that happens with all of us, for sure, but there's a reason that's spontaneous too, and we just need to allow that to happen and welcome that when it does. But we can't rely on only that, especially if you're a creative, or somebody that does what we do. But really anyone, again, I don't mean to make this all about people like us, or people in our line of work or anything, because back to what we just got done talking about, like, everybody has ideas. Just if you're trying to do something with them, especially something with purpose, you're trying to solve a problem, you have to make the space for the opportunity of an idea, and not be afraid to fail.
Yes. Do you think that is why, like, our all-consuming embracing of terrible ideas uh, is why other people have the perception that they don't have good ideas? Because maybe when you start that process, you're like, that sucked. Okay, what about that one? That's not a lot better. And you just kind of go through a whole bunch of bad ideas. Or my greatest fear is always not bad ideas, but sort of hacky ideas. Like, everybody's done it. That's my kryptonite. Everybody does this thing. I never like being in that space. So if I end up having a lot of ideas that I feel like everybody and their brother has done, I do get really frustrated. But also, as we keep saying, it's our job to work through that. So
Definitely.
we work through it. So do you think people who have not programmed themselves that way to work through it get the first 5 to 10 not good ideas and go, that's it, I can't do this, and give up and assume, those of us who just know what hacks we are, are magic?
I like the way that you asked the question about, like, being programmed a certain way, because it feels kind of it feels in line with my answer, which is that all of those ideas, whether you feel like you're a hack, or they're just original ideas that you wind up devalidating for some reason, that's just practice. And you have to do that practice. And again, a lot of them probably need to be bad, or they just will naturally be bad before you'll get to the good one. But you will not get to the good one if you cut yourself off by saying, I'm not good at this, or I'm just, hacking other people's ideas, or, whatever. At the end of the day, like, that's just how change and growth and innovation and ideas happen. You're inspired by something, you see something that somebody else has done, and then you just put your spin or your tweak on it. And then, yes, for sure, from time to time, something original and beautiful happens. But same thing, like, those things don't happen unless you hack it once in a while, or, get inspired by something that you've already seen.
Right. Right. Well, and ultimately, we are all sort of working out of the same toolbox, right? So we, aside from life experience, where we all have different life experiences, but also as human beings, we're having human experiences. So you get up, you brush your teeth, you put on clean socks, whatever those human experiences are. And then we have cultural references. We have, I don't know. Like everybody sort of, as I'm saying, let me finish the thought I started 45 minutes ago. Say we're all really working from the same toolbox. And it is a matter of how willing are you. Oh, I'm about to love this analogy. How willing are you to hit yourself in the thumb with the hammer out of that toolbox and keep going,
Yeah,
instead of just shutting it and
for
walking
sure.
away?
Yeah,
That
love
was
it.
that was clean. Oh
Yeah,
man.
I can paint the picture in my head right now. Nicely done.
I'm telling you, I'm on a roll. So when we first had the idea for this episode, you suggested that we not just talk about what we think about having ideas, as meta as that is, and as much as we could talk for hours and just navel gaze, which is great, I think, about us. But that we look for some science to answer the big question of, where do ideas come from? And I have science. Would you like some science? I brought you some.
I would like an adequate amount of science.
I'm going to give you exactly an adequate amount, because we are talking cognitive and neuroscience. And knowing that, I do not want to get too deep into it. But I found a couple of different articles that are really interesting. One of them is way above my mental pay grade, but the one that I found, I'll share them both. So people smarter than me, when they read this, when they read the blog, can read that article and maybe call and explain it to me. But the very first one, which was really illuminating to me, is by a Dr. Pranita Mehrotra, and I apologize if Dr. Mehrotra hears this and I have butchered their name. But this article says, according to Thomas Suddendorf, why did I pick an article with more last names I can't pronounce? Professor and author, what set Homo sapiens apart as we diverged from Neanderthals and other hominins wasn't our language or our tools. As we know, this is not a direct quote, but I will say, as we know, there are other animals that use tools. Rudimentary forms of that exist in other animals, but what sets us apart is our ability to do open-ended imagination and make connection between different concepts. And the article describes the way that by being able to make connections between different concepts, we can basically time travel. We can look to the past, we can look to the future, we can assess the present, and then we can take those all into account. And that helped us early on foresee and plan for our survival, right? And in addition, being able to make those connections between different concepts to different pieces of thought, it helped us create a stream of consciousness that doesn't exist in other animals. And it goes on, the article goes on to say, as Professor Leon Gabora explains, with this self-triggered recall and rehearsal loop, we could now activate and reactivate visions and dreams, such that with each successive conception of them, they were looked at from a different angle, embedded a little more firmly in the constraints of reality as we know it, and potentially turned into a form in which they could be realized. I take this to mean that it gives us an ability to think about thinking, to take a thing and turn it around and look at it in our brain and work through different scenarios in a way that other animals can't.
Okay.
And it helps us create ideas from all of the loose concepts that are swimming around in our brain. And the article goes on to say that this cognitive ability is the direct result of how our brain stores information associatively.
Right.
Science.
Science. Or as some of us like to say, magic.
Yes.
Everything you just described is probably, at least tickling that idea of the magic that we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, right? Or like just some of this, unless you're a neuroscientist, like you just might not understand. And even them, I think they might have to admit that they don't understand all of it. And there's just a certain amount of it that maybe could be explained with science sometime down the road, but for now it's just a little bit of magic, and that's okay.
Right. I mean, it sounds like at a certain point in our evolution, just the switch flipped, and just the way our brains cognated. Is cognated a word, do you think? Because
if it's not, it is now.
It's fun. It's fun. The way our brains cognate change. Like developed this deeper understanding of things outside of us.
Yeah.
So moving on to more scholarly text. The things I highlighted very few sentences because I can't understand most of it, but it does point out, it talks a little bit about what makes our minds ready to cognate. And for one thing, it says, it's the freedom to venture without the confines of traditional thinking or the burden of practical concerns. So it's imagination, right? And then, and I think I would say in what, when we're talking about the problem solving we do, I maybe start with, what is the imaginary version of this, right? What is the perfect world version of the thing? And now how can I take that perfect world version and put it into reality? And how do I make all of those things happen?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. To like imagine without limits, and then create within those limits or within your resources and stuff, is bringing those ideas into reality. And and our ability as humans to do that is what makes us super special, right?
Yeah. A thing, maybe this is for another time, but it's just occurring to me, a thing I have heard and we should do more research on, is the differences in the way people think. Not just think, it's, how do I describe this? Some people, when they are imagining things in their mind, don't imagine them with pictures, which I don't know how you imagine things, but I can't, ironically, I can't picture imagining a thing just with words or numbers and not visualizing it in my brain. So what
everything's a movie in my brain. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all real.
So there are differences. We diverge as human beings on how our brains work through things, and there are strengths and weaknesses based on just how you were made to cognate, which is interesting.
It is. And that is a topic for another day.
We're not going there. We're not going there. We went too far into neuroscience. And we need to back out slowly.
Right. Make sure nobody knew we were here. Let's just step back really slowly. Well,
Yeah, leave nothing but
since you,
footprints. What is it?
yeah,
Leave nothing but footprints, take nothing but
yeah,
memories.
yeah, right. Well, thanks for taking the challenge to dig into the science. You did a great job. We'll share those links out and everything
Yeah.
for sure. And thanks for picking all the complicated names. I'm going to start our something awesome segment, which we'll transition into now with another really complicated name for
Yes.
my something awesome.
Good.
That name is Adam Grant. I'm just kidding. It's not complicated at all. His name is Adam Grant. Uh,
So
and
unfair.
yeah, I know. I'm sorry. So Adam Grant is an organizational psychologist, a New York Times writer at the University of Pennsylvania. And what I'm going to be sharing is a TED Talk that he did. The title of it is "The Surprising Habits of Original Thinkers." And so, again, kind of getting back to that idea, or a quote from what he shares is, "You need a lot of bad ideas in order to get a few good ones." So I think that that's right on par with what we've been talking about today. But just some good, a good share, some good content about why a lot of ideas fail and why a lot of ideas need to fail in order for the good ones to emerge. And yeah, definitely something to check out and give some good insight on how creative people come up with good ideas, and also aligns with something we've been saying throughout this episode about how everybody is a certain amount of a creative person, which means
Right.
everybody comes up with ideas.
Nice. I can't wait to watch that.
Yeah.
Well, keeping with the idea topic, I'm going to shift our gears just a little bit, and I am going to talk. My something awesome is around the theme of maybe dangerous ideas. Ooh, subversive
Ooh,
ideas. Yes.
yeah.
So I am the link I am going to share is to littlefreelibrary.org. And that is not the whole story here. If you're not familiar with the Little Free Libraries, they are all over the country, all over the world. And at littlefreelibrary.org, you can find them near you. There are quite a number. If you're a Marshfield, Wisconsin person, I checked out the map, and there are quite a number of them in Marshfield,
Yeah.
and you can go and see them and see the map on littlefreelibrary.org. And you can also find out how you can set up your own little free library and register it, and get resources to books and community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the shocking reveal is this is all on my mind, and it is linked to subversive ideas because we are building a little free library. And
Nice.
in fact, this was the springtime, wintertime project that my brother, my dad, and I worked on in my dad's basement. And we have decided that with what is happening with people banning books, especially because some of those books are authors my brother and I really, really love,
Mhm.
we are going to try to have our little free library specialize in banned books.
Nice.
So that is, you can purchase from littlefreelibrary.org, you can purchase a little plaque with a little registration number, which I'm going to do so I can register my little free library of banned books. And it is, I mean, you would be surprised once you start looking at some books that have been banned. Things like Judy Blume, which you probably don't know a lot about Judy Blume because you're a guy, but Judy Blume was so important to girls, like coming of age. One of her big ones was about girls hitting puberty. It's called "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret." And so there's a lot of like female coming of age stuff that Judy Blume was really important to help out girls, and some of her books have been banned. Yeah, unbelievable things.
Yeah.
Ironically, did you have to read Fahrenheit 451 in high school?
I don't I don't think we had to, but I did.
Okay, that's banned.
Yeah.
ironically, because it's
Right.
about book burning.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah, so and actually the author of Fahrenheit 451, Kurt Vonnegut, is one of my favorite authors, one of my brother's favorite authors, and I mean is truly a subversive thinker, but
Yeah.
a lot that you could learn from him. So anyway, that was my exciting news and reveal. Go to
Nice.
littlefreelibrary.org and you can find a little free library in your area. And this is my commercial that if people are banning books around you, you should get them and read them and find out why.
Yeah.
Jazz
Yeah.
hands.
Awesome. Yeah. And soon enough, you'll get to see the little free library that Sue registered. Good for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. If it was done, I would share a picture, but right now it just looks like, I don't know.
We'll update the post later when you have a picture of it.
Yeah, when it's looking cute.
Yeah. I don't have, I'm not 100% confident in this, but I believe that Little Free Library, or at least a version of it, the version that we probably see around us, was created in Wisconsin.
Oh, really?
Like the first one was created in Wisconsin. Yeah. So maybe I could even do a little digging on that. And if I prove that to be true,
nice.
That's something that we could share too. But
yeah. Fun. Hey, fun fact, man, Wisconsin, land of the progressive thinkers.
How about that?
It is true. It is true.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
So you can check that stuff out on our blog or on your favorite podcast app. If you want to go to our blog, you can find all of our podcasts and some other interesting things, including an article we just posted on our blog about cyber warfare, which is really interesting and really timely. I do say so myself.
Sure. Yeah.
And that is exclamationqso.com/blog. And you can catch us there, which if you're listening to it, you maybe already have, and find everything else. Otherwise, yeah, find us on your favorite podcast app. Go back, listen to all of our episodes. We have a lot of great information and a minimum of navel gazing.
Just the right amount.
Right.
All right. Thanks, Sue. Thank you, friends, for tuning in. This is Ben and Sue, your proclaimed professors of awesomeology, reminding you that life's awesome if you make it awesome. We'll see you next time.